Okay. We're ready to get started. I'll keep admitting people as we go, but let me give you the preamble here. Welcome everyone to the May 20th, 2025 Professional Ethics webinar hosted by the Nevada Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors. My name is Derek, and I will be handling the mechanics of the presentation. Steve will be the presenter. By attending today's webinar, licensees will fulfill the license renewal requirement for 2 hours of professional ethics. We're limited to 500, although I think we're going to be short of that. So everybody should get in. If for some reason you know people that wanted to attend that could not, I will make this video available on our website on the continuing education page, where you can watch that at any point. So you can share that with your colleagues. I will give you instructions later on in the presentation on how to do that. If you have questions, I know that a lot of people, again, have sophisticated webinar, Zoom technology. I'm the guy running it. So messaging and chatting and stuff like that with 300 attendees is not practical when they all come flooding in at once. I just can't respond. I can't type that fast. So I'm going to give you instructions on how to email me questions. We will have an opportunity at the end to have a few. We'll be able to take a few questions. I'll try to read them in the chat as quickly as I can and handle it that way. If we don't get to your question, I'll give you instructions on how to email me. I will also, and Steve maybe can talk about this too, on how to document attendance on this. That gets into some PDH compliance issues, which he's becoming the expert on. Sorry, I'm clicking some things here. Just a reminder to everyone, I know some people have AI assistants that record this. I'm going to decline that. And the main reason is we make this video available, freely available to anybody that wants it. So the transcript, all of that will be available on our website on a YouTube channel. So I'm going to decline all the requests to let AI assistants record this. Anyway, just for that. So again, Steve will maybe go into a little bit of detail about how to document the PDH activity and participation in this meeting later on in the show. For now, let me get Steve introduced and we'll get underway here. Steve is a retired civil engineer from Texas, but he is currently a compliance investigator for the Nevada Board. With 43+ year career under his belt, he has seen just about everything. Ethics has been part of his job function over the years, and he has conducted ethics presentations for numerous professional organizations around the country. With that, Steve, I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, thank you, Derek.
Go ahead and.
Well, I was going to try to get my first slide to come forward. We've had
Just
our first. There we
There
go.
you go.
My mouse was off the screen. Good morning. As Derek said, my name is Steve Heiner. I've been working with the board since about July of 2022 as a compliance investigator. As Derek said, I've been involved with ethics. I started teaching it about 2014. Numerous states around the country, but particularly in Texas. So appreciate you taking the time to sit in on this, and I hope you find something beneficial that you can take back with you, and the time will be interesting for you. One thing, if you've attended these before, we've been doing this for what, Derek, now 3 years?
2022 is our first one. So this is the
okay.
This is the 8th PDH. So we do 2 of these every before each renewal period in December and the one in June. So we do these prior to those renewal periods.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So yeah, let's see. Let's just get right into this. Oh, what I was going to say is, if you've attended these before, we have a break in between. But today, Derek and I were talking. We're just going to push through the break. That will enable us to finish a little bit early, which everybody likes. And hopefully it won't take out to the entire 2 hours. But if you've attended my presentations before, you will know this slide is in every one of mine concerning safety. And when I was working, it was with the concrete pipe industry. Safety was our number one priority, whether it's in the office, in the plant, or out on the job site, just as it probably is with your company or the municipality or agency that you work with. And the question I always ask is, if you're in a group, in a room, in your office, what is your evacuation plan if there is an emergency and you have to evacuate? Do you have one? When I was working, we did, not only for the office, but also for the plant. And it is one of the things we took extremely seriously. But anyway, safety is extremely important. I first like to talk a little bit about what we do, the Nevada Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors, and a statement that's in our purpose and mission. Safeguard life, health, and property, and to promote the public welfare. That is a term you will find in every ethics policy code that I've looked at. That term is there. And you will see that a little bit later in the presentation. But the primary job that we have is to safeguard life, health, property, and to promote the public welfare. I always like to introduce the board members. They are on the board for up to 12 years, which would be what, Derek? 3 terms.
3 terms, yeah.
Each term is 4 years. So you can see there, well, we haven't I made a mistake. No, it's okay. These slides have been updated. I was looking at the expiration dates and everybody's still current, thank goodness.
So yeah, this page is on our website too, and that's where I pulled this from, Steve.
Okay,
so.
Thank you for updating me. Sometimes I get caught. They're all appointed by the governor. And so most of them serve the full 12 years, unless there's some usually extenuating circumstances. But these are your board members. I'd like to mention our newsletter, the Nevada Connection. Derek made reference to it as going into the continuing education page. It's published basically twice annually. We like it, early winter maybe, Derek, and late fall. Sometimes.
A lot of it has to do with when we have news. Everyone, please keep your mics muted, just so that we don't get distracted. But yeah, it's published. We try to do it twice a year, but it's really based on when we have meaningful news. We held off on the one we just published because we had the SB 78, which was Senate Bill 78 was in the works, and we wanted to get some updates on that out. So.
Okay, thank you, Derek. And this next comment about the revisions to the continuing education requirements. As you know, one of the reasons you were either here yesterday or here today is because of the not new requirements. They were put in place in 2021. And that is the 1 hour of Nevada laws and regulations you're required to obtain each renewal period, and the 2 hours of ethics. This is important because of something we're going to talk about a little bit later in the presentation, but I can't really say it's a new requirement because it's been in effect for over 4 years, but you'd be surprised at the number of people who are not aware of this. And that has come to light with some recent audits we've been doing. I'd like to give an update on our status. I like to call it status of Nevada licensees. As you can see on the left-hand side, this was as of the end of 2024. We had almost, probably now, Derek, wouldn't you say over 15,000 licensed engineers?
Yeah, we're thereabouts. Yeah, it's close. This was from an annual report, so this might be 6 months. It's close though.
Okay, because if you look at the map, Nevada, we have 3,399. And the next top states, of course, California, Texas, Colorado, Arizona, in Utah. And of course, the one state, Rhode Island, actually has 6. Now, by discipline, of course, as with most things, the highest number is civil engineers. Then mechanical and electrical are tied at 13%. Structural engineers are 10, land surveyors 5%. So you can see what the disbursement is percentage-wise. So let me ask you, what is your definition of ethics? Just a general definition that would cover all professions and all scenarios you might find. Well, if you look it up, what I found is the discipline dealing with what is good and bad and with moral duty and obligation, or basically, in simpler terms, doing the right thing at the right time. Now, that is a general definition that could cover just about every area, as you can see. But if you go further in and look at individual professions, you will see that everyone usually has their own ethics definition. And there is one for engineering: the study of moral issues and decisions confronting individuals and organizations involved in engineering, and the study of related questions about the moral conduct, ideals, relationships, and technological development. Not only does engineering have their own definition, but also surveying. Now, surveying, this is just one I found, and I'm sure there are various other ones out there that are a little bit more basic, but they went ahead and the one I had here and started listing what I like to call the canons of ethics. And that's what you'll see in a lot of ethics definitions. They have a basic definition, but then they drill down into more specifics with various canons or sections of the ethics. Now, one of my favorite things to do is ask this question: how many states do you think require PDHs in ethics for professional engineers to maintain their PE? Anybody want to throw a number in the chat room?
Yeah, let's avoid that. It just becomes
Okay.
unwieldy.
I'm sorry, Derek. I didn't
That's
mean
all right.
to get you messed up there.
Yeah.
That's what's bad about these online webinars. You can't get a lot of interaction from people, particularly when what's our head count at now, Derek?
332.
Yeah. So that can get kind of confusing there. Well, as I said earlier, I've been doing this since 2014. And when I first looked at the states requiring ethics, there were only 6. So I've been tracking this on a map. And as of January of this year, we're now up to 19 states, plus the District of Columbia, that require ethics. Actually, only, like I mentioned, only 6 states back in 2013: Louisiana, Mississippi, New Mexico, New York, Texas, and Wisconsin. And every ethics seminar I give, I ask the same question here. Some of you probably have heard me speak before, but what does the dark blue states stand for? How are they significant? Well, if you can read the fine print at the very bottom of the slide, the dark blue represents states that do not have any PDH requirements to maintain your PE or your land surveying license, which is a little surprising to me, particularly for California. I would have thought they would have been one of the first ones regarding ethics, but Hawaii, California, and a couple over on the East Coast. Once you get your PE or PLS, there are no further education requirements required. So, same question for land surveyors. Could I just duplicate that first map, do you think? Or is there a different number? Actually, it's a different number. Now, I did not update them for this current year or this past year, but in 2024, there were 16. And if you were to put these 2 maps side by side, they're not the same states. Like West Virginia does not require ethics PDH for PEs, but they do for land surveyors. But if you look at Florida, it's required for PEs, but not for land surveyors. And where that normally happens is when the two different organizations, professional engineers and professional land surveyors, are not combined under the same umbrella. They have two different boards, and that's usually the states you could find this in. And of course, we go through some of my favorite topics, and every time I give this presentation, you're going to hear the same thing, but usually the data or the information is brought up to what it currently is. So regarding how the public feels about engineers and surveyors, how do you think the public opinion is concerning honesty and ethics with regards to engineers? Is it good? Is it bad? Or kind of in the middle of the road? Well, you're probably all familiar with the Gallup polls, and that's the information I use that I've been tracking for the last 10 years. They started surveying various professions in 1976. And they've been doing annual updates since 1990. And they usually survey about 23 professions. Now, they don't do all 23 every year, but over a several years period, you will get all of them updated at least once. But what's interesting in this data is that all professions, regardless of if they're highly rated with regards to honesty and ethics or very poorly rated, have all shown a decline in how the general public feels about this particular profession, which I found kind of interesting. So my next question, again, this is more fun if it's a live presentation. What are the most favored professions regarding honesty and ethics? What Gallup did is take a poll, surveyed a large number of people, and asked them how they felt. Was it high, low, in between with regards to honesty and ethics? Now, the number one profession has been there for 22 years straight. And anybody who remembers my presentation should get this right. Nurses. 38% of the public feel they are very high regarding honesty and ethics. And like I said, 22 years at number one. The next four seem to switch around a lot. Actually, this is the first time I've had veterinarians have a high rating. This will make everybody happy. Engineers, dentists, unless he's filling cavities, and doctors. Now, when I say they've dropped, usually up until recently, nurses were in the 85 to 88 percentile. Everybody else, the next four, were usually in the 70%. Maybe the last one would be in the 60 percentile range. But over time, everybody has dropped with regards to honesty and ethics, according to the general public. Now, again, everybody tends to like the bottom of the list better. And usually this live, we have a lot of discussion created by these questions. So who do you think's at the bottom of the list? The top 5 bottom performers. TV reporters, 13. Business executive, 12. Members of Congress, 8. Single digits. Car sales, they've either been at the very bottom or second or third from the bottom ever since I've been looking at this. And the lowest this year or last year were lobbyists. Only 4% of the surveyed public felt they had honesty and ethics in their jobs. So I've had questions raised a number of times, and I feel it is important to understand this, and that's why I've put in as part of the ethics presentation. But I had the questions asked of me, what happens when a complaint is filed, whether it's against a professional engineer or a professional land surveyor? So what I did is I put together a quick little overview of the steps we go through when a complaint is filed. Actually, the board adopted procedures and put in some of our own for handling complaints. And there is actually, for handling the complaints. Now, what we only investigate are violations of the two codes regarding engineers and land surveyors. That's NAC 625 and NRS 625, Nevada Administrative Code and Nevada Revised Statutes. Those are the only two codes that we're responsible for enforcing. What are some of the violations that the code also addresses? Gross negligence, misconduct, professional standards, code of conduct. Big one, unlicensed practice of engineering or land surveying, and failure to be in responsible charge. Now, one question that causes some confusion sometimes is, what is responsible charge? And that definition is also varied over time. But basically, what it is if you put your stamp or seal on any plans, documents, calculations, it means you are taking professional responsibility for that work, whether it was done by you or an intern or even another engineer. If your stamp's on it, you are the one who's ultimately responsible for that work.
Hey, Steve, sorry
yeah.
to interrupt. You might want to turn your teams off. So not that we're going to get a ton of calls, but just had one flash up on your screen.
I saw that. Okay.
That's
well,
all
I'm
right.
on full screen mode here, so I don't want to shrink it down because I might lose something.
That's all right.
Okay, I'll go with it that way. Like I said, I'm not a computer genius, so once it's working, I don't like to step on it too many times. So, like I said earlier, anybody can file a complaint against an engineer or land surveyor. It doesn't have to be another professional engineer. It could be anybody. The only way that it's accepted as an official complaint, because we get a lot of phone calls, texts, emails, is that the complaint must be on the official form and emailed to the board. That form, of course, can be found on our website. A lot of times we have people send in documents or a complaint written. We tell them, take it back, put it on the form, and send it in. Then it becomes an official complaint. The other thing that some people don't understand, and they want us to do this, is the board cannot intervene in personal disputes or act as a mediation service between two parties. We get a number of requests for that, or through our investigations, that's what the intent of the complaint was, and we can't do that. First step is when the complaint is received, we review all the evidences provided to determine if it supports the alleged violation and does the complaint need to be opened. If it's sufficient, like I said, a formal investigation will be done. We look through everything that's sent to us, all the facts and evidence, and we vet it to be sure that it's accurate and truthful. We're in constant communications throughout the investigation with both the complainant who filed the complaint and, of course, the respondent, that being the engineer or the land surveyor. Once our investigation is complete, we create an internal document that we call a case summary. That's drafted. It states the case, the background information, the investigation, and what our opinion is as to how the complaint should be handled. That's then sent to the executive director, which is Mark Faulkner. He then selects a board liaison, one of those 12 board members you saw earlier. And there's where the initial determination on disciplinary action or whether it should be dismissed is determined. Based off of that, if there is no evidence that a violation is found, the matter will be dismissed. Both the complainant and the respondents will be so notified in writing about the how we found the complaint. Now, if a violation is found, we then involve board counsel. And there are two outcomes to that. First, a stipulated agreement is drafted and presented to the respondent. If accepted, it then goes to the entire board for consideration of disciplinary action. Where there, if it's not accepted by the respondent, it will go to a formal disciplinary committee hearing where the respondent will state his case as to why he feels the complaint is not valid. In either case, the final decision will be rendered and recorded. Now, if it's not found to be a complaint, there's no record maintained in your files or part of public record. That's correct, isn't it, Derek? Lost him for a minute. But if disciplinary action is taken, the sanctions will become a public record and reported to the national database maintained by the NCEES, which every state will have access to the outcome of the disciplinary action. So with that being said, we also get questions, or we thought we would give a couple of, I don't want to say tips, but suggestions on how to avoid the call. And by that, I mean receiving that on your cell phone that we want to get hold of you. I just like that. I think Derek put it together for us, but it kind of expresses the point. Now, it may seem simple what our recommendations are, but these are some of the things we find that if they had been conducted, there wouldn't have been a complaint. One of them being manage expectations with your client. Stay in contact with them, work with them, because a lot of times, you know it better than we do, the client is not aware of what's involved in a lot of work that engineers and surveyors do, particularly with permits filing, working with agencies and municipalities, and all the intricacies of what goes into submittals and pulling permits. They think it's easy. Another big complaint we get from complainants is that the engineer or surveyor never calls me back. I can't get in contact with them even though we have a contract. So stay in contact with them. Same thing applies with the emails. Numerous times the complainant can't get hold of get them to respond by emails. Another one is taking too much work and not enough time, I like to say. Don't overpromise. Be realistic in your assessments. And we actually get a lot of people not a lot, but people working outside their area of expertise. Stick with what we know. But the main one, because all of these are addressed, believe it or not, in NAC 625 and NRS 625. So a good understanding of the codes we have to work with is very, very helpful. Now, I mentioned PDHs earlier, and so did Derek. And this is another thing that I think is a big part of ethics, and that is the continuing educations. And I mentioned audits, but that's going to be the second half. So what I'd just like to take a minute and do is go over what's required for your PDHs. As the code requires in NAC section 430, 30 PDHs are required over each renewal period, with each renewal period being 2 years. And as I mentioned, since 2021, 2 hours of ethics and 1 hour of rules and regulations are required. And as you probably know from prior renewals, 15 hours can be carried forward. Now, one thing I'd like to say about the two new requirements is ethics. Basically, you can earn those anywhere. There are PDH companies that teach ethics. You can take ethics presentations from other states. You could do self-study. Just about anything, as long as it's addressing ethics, is acceptable. Now, the 1 hour of rules and regulations is where it gets a little sticky. As it currently stands, there are only two ways to fulfill that requirement. One is what some of you may have done yesterday, and that's attend the 1 hour presentation, just like we're doing here for ethics, that would cover rules and regulations. That is, these two presentations or webinars are presented twice a year. Once, usually to coincide with the June renewal, and the other to coincide with the December renewal. So we like to usually hold them in May and November. And surprisingly enough, and I'll talk about this when we're talking about audits of PDHs, had a couple people that submitted other states' rules and regulations, ethics, or I mean, excuse me, rules and regulations, PDH, and applied it to the Nevada regulation. That didn't work. It has to be on Nevada rules and regulations. There are exceptions to being audited. One is if you're a recent licensee, less than 2 years, for your first renewal, you're not required to obtain PDHs. I don't know if anybody falls under that requirement right now for their license renewal coming up. I guess we can tell if anybody signs off, Derek, that maybe they're young engineers. Active duty in the military for over 120 days. And now there's something we need to make people aware of, and this has come up in the last two renewal periods of the ethics audit or the PDH audits, and that is employed outside of the U.S. for 120 days or more. Now, what that is saying, you are working on projects outside the U.S., not in the state of Nevada. We now have a lot of engineers, international engineers. Probably, I don't know how many come in every year. Do you, Derek, of outside the country asking to be licensed PEs in the state?
We get a lot of Canadians. I don't know what the number is totally. I have a chart somewhere that has that information. I don't have it with me.
So what I'm saying there is if you live outside the United States but you're doing work within this state, you still are required to earn the Nevada PDHs that are stated in the rules and regulations. But with remote work and everything, it becomes very easy to live just about anywhere you want. And we have run across that. And that's going to start being enforced, that if you're doing work in the state, but you live outside the state, this condition does not apply or requirement.
Sorry, Steve, I just wanted one thing. Maybe I was sort of in between things. You can satisfy the PDH requirements if your state has equivalent PDH requirements. So if a lot of other states have 30 PDH hours or 15 per year,
right,
as well.
Yes,
so
that will work. And that's the slide that's up right now, Derek.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, yeah. So as Derek was saying, when we pull the audits, a number of people, and there's actually a block to check on the renewal application as if you have a state's license where their PDH requirements are substantially similar to this state's, it can count. Now, there's one caveat to that, of course, and you could probably guess what it is from the previous topic. You still are required to obtain rules and regulations relative to this state. And again, self-study or watch the webinars. The videos, like Derek said, will be posted probably by the end of the week, won't they?
Yeah, I should have. Yeah, actually, maybe sooner than that.
Okay.
Tomorrow.
Thanks. Or what some people do is they go on inactive status. And usually with each renewal period, when we're doing the audits, we have 2 to 4 people to say, oh, no, just put me on inactive. But then if you want to start reactivate your license, you must bring your PDHs up to date and to get removed from inactive status back to active status. The other question, as I think Derek mentioned earlier, what counts as a PDH? And basically, if you look at NAC 470, an activity to maintain, improve, or expand the skills and knowledge relevant to his or her discipline. That seems to imply it has to be technical in nature, but that's not always the case. What I like to say, if it benefits you in your job responsibilities, it can be counted. So have a little bit of wiggle room there, but it's a good rule of thumb to keep, that if it benefits you, and because we use kind of like the honor system, we tend to trust everybody and think they are usually staying compliant with the rules and regulations. Now, how do you prove that you obtain those PDHs? And this is another big question that comes up for the people who get audited. And again, it used to be that you had to have a certificate with your name printed on it. Some states actually required your PE license number or a PLS license number, and it had to be signed by whoever presented the webinar. That was a number of years ago for those who've been around for a while. But now, like I said here, just about anything counts. It doesn't have to be a certificate. Certain things I accept self-certification on. You can use credit card receipt that shows that you paid for the seminar or the conference. You can use attendance lists. If there's an attendance list for the webinar you attended or the specification meeting, if your name's on there, copy that and put it in your file. So just about anything counts. But again, like everything else, there is the caveat where the board may refuse to accept professional development hours for which proof of completion is submitted pursuant to subsection 1 if the board determines that the proof of completion is insufficient, seeing we have final say as to whether it's accepted or not. But again, trust me, there is a lot of leeway as to what kind of documentation is needed. Now, what happens if you fail to complete the correct number for your renewal? There are a number that happens to, not a whole lot. Sometimes the person only has 30, and it turns out that 1 or 2 are the PDHs were not accepted, so they're non-compliant. Well, your license isn't going to be put on inactive status immediately. What we will do, or what you have, is a 6-month window after the renewal date to bring your PDHs up into full compliance of the 30, plus the 2 for ethics and the 1 for rules and regulations. Now, failure to complete those hours at the end of the grace period, your license will be put on inactive status. And then it will stay that way until you get the correct number of PDHs and your documentation is accepted and approved by the board or by the staff. Now, when are the audits conducted? As you're well aware, we have 2 renewal periods. One ends on June 30th of the previous 2-year period, and the other December 31st of the previous 2-year period. What we then do is we take a random sampling of only 100 of you. 100 licensees will be selected. And the way we do that is we pull all the names of the people who renewed for that renewal period. We assign each name a number, ask request from a random number generator, which you can get off the web, to pick 100 numbers between, say, 1 and 3,000 or however many it might be. And we choose those 100. Now, I usually pick more than 100 because sometimes there are reasons that those people will not be audited. Can be first-time audit, Those people are not counted in the 100. Going inactive status, all of that. So I always have a few extras. So I usually do about 120. We then send a request to each lucky licensee to send documentation in support of the PDHs reported on the renewal application. Now, you don't have to send in your documentation or even your PDH activity report with your renewal. We get a few of those every year, but it's only required if you're one of the lucky auditees, as I like to say. So after we receive that, all the documentation is reviewed. I look at each one of them that you have listed as a PDH, and I verify that you have adequate documentation for that particular PDH. Now, what are some of the issues that have come up during these audits? Now, as Derek says, I'm learning a lot about this because my very first, for some reason, I was the lucky one and assigned to do the audits. And my first one was last. Yeah, I know. Thanks, Derek.
You're good at it. Hey, your engineers are detail oriented, Steve, and you're a detail oriented guy.
No compliments will not help.
Okay.
So my first one was June 30th, and I personally made mistakes that have since been corrected because it was my first shot. I really wasn't sure how it was all conducted. But some of the issues, contact information. We maintain, your profile on our website, in our database, I should say, it's not on the website, and also copies of all your renewal applications. And we don't see a whole lot of it, but but there's sometimes the email's wrong, you've switched jobs, phone numbers have changed, and we have trouble getting in contact with you. But so far, I've been able to find everybody I've been looking for. So be aware of the rule. You must inform the board in writing, meaning an email, within 30 days of the effective date of the change to be compliant. So meaning.
Sorry,
Yes.
Steve, just I would say one thing, you can also call the office. I do a lot of these updates myself. We have other staff that can do it as well. So a phone call can be just as acceptable, updating your contact information. We can make the update live on the call. So that's good too.
Okay. Thank you, Derek. I guess that means we probably ought to look at changing the wording of this requirement.
Yeah.
But that's minor. But thank you, Derek. Yes, I should have been aware, remembered that. Phone call, email. Hey, what about a text message, Derek?
Text message is not good because that goes to our personal cells. Just
phone that's right.
Phone call to the board office is acceptable. I mean, we can tap into the database and make the change live.
Okay. Thank you. Now, I don't know how many of you have an NCEES record to maintain your listing of your PDHs and all through their CPC page, continued professional competency. But if you don't have one, I highly recommend you do it. It's free, and I have yet to find any issues with engineers or line surveyors PDHs if they have an NCEES record. They keep it organized for you. They break it out by sections, by topics, and you're given a number. And what we need is you to send us that number. And all of this is explained in the orientation email I send when you're being selected for the audit. And another step is you must give us permission to access those files. All you do is go on the website, on the CPC page, and you can click whatever state you want, and we get notification that we have access to that particular engineer or land surveyor's records. And it's clean, simple, and it's a very easy way to maintain good records. The second most common, I don't want to say issue, but thing we've had, only reply to the original email you receive. That was not made clear back in June. That was my mistake. And a lot of people we had people bring in their documents and leave them at the board office. We have them calling various staff members. They send it to the general email account. It needs to please come back to me. Not that we would refuse them, but the easiest thing is to always, if it regards your PDHs and the audit, reply to me or to my email. Not as common as it used to be, but what I've just talked about, required documentation. This has happened during both audits. An engineer or surveyor has left a previous employer, or a municipality person has left their employer, and they forget to take their documentation with them. They keep it on file on their employer computer. And what happens with some of the agencies I know is after the person's been gone, 30, 60 days, they wipe everything. And it's not accessible to anybody. Remember, you have to maintain these records for 3 years. So you have to keep a 3-year record of all your PDHs. And then if you want to, they can be deleted. One thing, if you don't want to do the NCEES record, we highly recommend is use our activity report that's on the website. That is one of the best ways, and I'm very appreciative of people who do use it because it spells out everything that you're giving me documentation for. And it's a good way also to keep track of your PDHs. It's just a Excel spreadsheet that you can download and use for tracking. Check your spam folder. Not a lot, but sometimes our emails actually go to your spam folder and they're overlooked. And that just delays having to conduct the audit. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm still surprised that people are not aware of this, the ethics and rules and regulation requirement. Because like I said, it was implemented in the state in 2021. And also not aware that to meet those 2 requirements, the webinars are posted on the website. That's why I said earlier, take a look at the Nevada Connection on a regular basis. There's good information out there, and there's a lot of points and tips for helping you out with various things. This was a mistake I made in the first one. And yet I made a few mistakes when I did this for the very first time. What I now do is as soon as you send me your first response with your first set of documentation, I immediately respond back to you that I received it. And that puts a lot of people's mind at ease because they're worrying that it may go to our spam or didn't go through or something of that nature. I respond immediately after I receive it. So that's been corrected. And again, like I said earlier, it's been corrected and it's in the orientation email that is informing you that you're going to be audited. It's about how to respond and how to do it. A little bit of statistics from the last audit, which was just completed. It was 116 people I actually ended up auditing. And some people felt kind of a low number. Only 37 respondents achieved a 100% score on the first review. We're kind of hoping to get that number up a little bit on the next one. 26 of the respondents used the NCEES CPC account. We'd like to see that increase too. It makes our job easier. 12 unaware of those 2 requirements. 1 person sent in documentation on 137 PDHs. And reported unacceptable PDHs, 5. And as I said earlier, 2 of those were attempting to use it wasn't like they were doing anything wrong. I guess they just weren't unaware, attempting to use another state's rules and regulation PDH for this state's. So that being said, let's jump really back into a detailed discussion of ethics. The NSPE, to me, sets the bar for ethics. They have one of the most extensive sections on ethics that I've seen of all the associations, states, and everything that I've reviewed in my research for ethics. Their code was adopted in 1946. Its last revision was due in July of 2019, which had to do with compliance. Code of ethics, I mentioned safety and well-being of the public. That's stated in the mission of the Code of Ethics. In July, like I said, the 2019 last revision, I was trying to think of the word harassment and discrimination. Anti-discrimination is what the correction for that particular canon. Now, as I said before that first slide, though, that same term, public health, safety, and welfare, appears throughout the NSPE information on ethics. It's in their preamble to the code. It's in the fundamental canons. It's also found in the rules of practice and professional obligations. So you can see it's something that professional organization for engineers takes extremely seriously. Now, they also have an ethics definition, similar to the one I showed you earlier, but again, just talking about moral issues, decisions, and more moral conduct and doing what's right. They also have very interesting file that you can open. They used to keep this open to the general public, but it's now, you have to become a member of NSPE to access these files. But they started investigating ethics cases or addressing ethics complaints back in 1958. Very first one, and that's in this file. They list all the cases they review every year, and they're all posted online, and they can get extremely interesting. So I took 4 of them that are more current and more recent that address some more up-to-date issues, as I like to think about. So I just want to take a quick run through and show you some of the things that we're talking about. Now, their board is called BER, Board of Ethical Review, and it's a group of NSPE members. So first question or first case I call conflict of interest, multiple proposals. State DOT is seeking design build contractor for a specialized project. One engineer possesses unique expertise in this area, and he's been contacted by 3 competing contractors who want to join in with him to submit the proposal. Each contractor will prepare a proposal. Now, the question is, would it be ethical for engineer to participate with multiple contractors in response to that RFP? And again, we can't discuss this because it would just be a big mess. I'm sorry, but if we were live, we could have a little bit of open discussion about it. What the outcome was, what the board ruled, it would be ethical. The award would only go to one contractor, and he would only ultimately work for the contractor that wins the award. So they felt there was not any conflict of interest there. Now, fiduciary duty, engineers and surveyors getting into legal aspects, I don't know. The engineer is negotiating a contract for a building with a client. The client adds a provision to the contract. The engineer shall act as a fiduciary on behalf of the client in the performance of engineering services for the benefit of the client. Now, a fiduciary is required to act for the benefits of another on all matters. fiduciary owes the other party the duties of good faith, trust, confidence, and candor in all matters within the scope of the relationship. That's the definition of fiduciary. Question: would that in any way affect his ethical responsibilities if he agrees to be the fiduciary on behalf of the client? Give you half a minute to think about it. What they ruled, it's not. But they put a caveat: engineer must clearly communicate to the client that his or her paramount obligation is to protect the public health, safety, and welfare, his ethical obligations. And he should also negotiate additional language in the agreement recognizing this. Now, bridge inspection and drawings. An engineer serves as an inspector on a bridge renovation project. He works for the company that holds a contract with the city or the town to provide engineering inspection services. So it's the engineer working for an engineering company who holds the inspection services contract for the city. The GC on the project is the engineer's former employer. The engineer continues to perform occasional jobs for the GC who he used to work for on a part-time basis. One of these happens to be the preparation of shop drawings for that general contractor on the bridge project he's supposed to inspect. He did not disclose any of this with the GC, his company, the company he currently works for, or the town. What's his ethical obligation? Kind of pretty cut and dried, don't you think? He should immediately cease performing work for the GC and fully disclose what work he has performed to both the engineering company he works for and the town. Now, what if this had happened in Nevada? Are there codes and statutes to prevent this? And if so, what do you think they are? Well, yes, there are. One would be NAC 625-510, fundamental principles, basically being honest and truthful for your clients and people you're working for. Being a faithful agent is also covered, would be part of this investigation if we were doing it. And written contracts. There are a number of states, if you're well aware, that do not require contracts for an engineer or a surveyor's work. But in this state, of course, it is. So anytime he did shop drawings for that GC, he should have had a written contract with it. I don't know if that's the case or not, but that's one of the first questions I always ask, either of the client or the respondent on an investigation is, let me see the written contract. Campaign contributions. Engineer is president of a firm and provides services for public entities. A certain client, significant client, I should say, a county, which regularly awards this engineer's firm contracts, has a county commissioner that's facing a hotly contested race. Now, statutes limit contributions to $5,000. The engineer feels compelled to contribute something, but is worried about perceptions in case if the amount is very high or if it would look like impropriety. Made a contribution of $100, which is in line with their company policy, but is one of the smaller ones made to the commissioner. Was it ethical for the contribution to be made? And what about his perception of impropriety? if the contribution was more up to the legal limit. As you can probably guess, it would be ethical in both cases, as long as he didn't exceed the limit and it was within the statutes that he could make a contribution. So those were just a few cases as evidence of what type of things that the NSPE has to review. Now, what about the NCEES? Talked about them a lot with regards to the PDHs, but it was kind of interesting. I didn't know the history until I looked it up. It actually began in 1891 in California to regulate surveyors, and engineers weren't brought into the fold until about 1920, well, when the NCEES was formed. But Wyoming was then the first state to require engineers to be licensed or regulated in 1907. In the vision, there's a familiar statement, isn't it? Safeguard the health, safety, and welfare of the public. In the mission for NCEES, it says the same thing. Rules of professional conduct, numbers similar to what we have in our NRS and NAC 625. Health, safety, and welfare. And then obligations to the public. So again, just like NSPE, NCEES has the same type of thing. Safe, healthy, and welfare of the public and their obligations. And again, stated 3 times within that section of their code. Now, what about for surveyors? The NSPS has their own code of ethics also. And what they have done, mentioned ethical standards, but they've addressed it through a series of canons that they've developed, which the NSPE uses within their codes and other associations do too. But they have canons that address each of the issues similar to the sections of the codes like we have. And I think it goes up through a few more. I'm not going to take the time to go through each of these in detail, but just suffice to say that they're out there and they explain what's needed with regards to ethics. Same thing with your state association for land surveyors. Again, in their mission, they talk about high professional standards of professional ethics. And again, they talk about the different aspects, as we've mentioned, for the previous associations and organizations. And as you will see in most ethics cases or codes, you'll see the same concepts, but sometimes used or specified in different wording. But basically, it's all saying the same thing. Confidentiality, unfair practice, conflict of interest, all of which are induced or can be found in various ethics codes. Legal experts, and promote to the public. Now, this would have been a gimme because I've said it so many times in this first hour. What are the 2 codes that we abide by? And of course, you already know what they are: NAC or NRS 625 and NAC 625. Now, you look at that, and both NAC and NRS, safety, health, and welfare of the public. First item that's stated in the relations with the public. And in NAC, or NRS, excuse me, on their purpose, safeguard life, health, property, and to promote the public health welfare. Same thing, just said in a little bit different words. Now, what are our codes with regards to code of conduct? That can be found in NAC 625. It starts in section 510, where they address fundamental canons, or fundamental principles, excuse me. Relations with the public. relations with employers and clients, relations with other engineers or land surveyors. We have to behave. And here's one of the key ones that we've gone into a little detail on previous seminars or webinars, is your written contract. That can be if it's well written, it protects everybody, both you and the client. And it also protects the who you're doing the work for, meaning the agency, the county, the municipality, whichever it may be. Because if a properly written contract is used, it usually doesn't cause complaints, or it solves a number of them. It doesn't have to be very detailed, but it needs to be a little specific. You need to tell them what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and how much is the estimated cost. And if those questions are answered and spelled out, it prevents a lot of problems from happening. In fact, there is a section on our website that goes into great detail on how to write a proper contract that covers all of these areas. So it's something could be worthwhile taking a quick look at. And a final section in the Code of Ethics is if you're employed by a government entity, what ethical requirements do you have? What are the most common violations we see in our complaints? And what I did to compile this information, I went back and looked through dozens and dozens of cases that we've reviewed or we ruled on. And what were the sections of the code that were most widely referenced in that complaint that we found the engineer or surveyor in violation of? Well, the top winners, so to speak, were 410, grounds for disciplinary or other actions, relations with employers and clients, unlawful use of signature or stamp. And that could be a number of different things. Written contract, as I mentioned earlier, not having that. It is required if you're working as a professional engineer or land surveyor with a client, you must have a written contract. And unlawful practice of engineering. Now, what we're going to do now is finish up with some actual case studies of cases that were reviewed by a board. These were complaints that were filed, violations were found, and what were the outcomes of those findings, and what kind of disciplinary action was set for the engineer or the land surveyor. So the situation was, client was contacted through Yelp wanting to adapt a set of house plans that were found on the internet. You can kind of see probably where this one's going. Engineer agreed, said it should take 4 to 5 weeks. This was in late 2019. Typical work included surveying, site plans, grading, septic design, structural, and electrical for the building. Client paid 50% down, which was $7,000. And after working on the project for a while, the engineer recommended a lot merger and was retained later the following year to complete that work. And even though there was a contract, the engineer was found that he or she failed to meet the communicated deadline. In fact, the first permit submittal wasn't made to the county until a year later in August of 2021. What happened, or some more of the facts? First submittal was rejected, resubmitted 3 times. There were multiple errors regarding the lot merger. It wasn't until a year after that that the lot merger was finally approved in August of 2022, but the engineer actually after that, refunded $7,000 to the client in January of 2023. What violations were committed? Failure to be a faithful agent. Even though he or she was licensed in all areas, he or she was not very experienced in certain areas that were needed to be handled. Found gross negligence, incompetency, and misconduct. And what was the disciplinary action implemented? His license was suspended for 2 years, but what we normally do with the cases is we suspend the license, but we stay the suspension and put the person on probation. Now, that allows the individual to continue to work. Because if you were suspended, of course, you wouldn't be working for the entire length of the period. So, but you still have to meet the other areas of the stipulated agreement. That being, you will always be required to turn in a bi-monthly report of any work you did in Nevada. If you did not do any work in the state, you still have to submit a report stating no work was undertaken. He refunded the additional $7,000 to the client, was assessed legal fees of $1,700, and any surveying work performed since November 2022 and during the probationary period had to be reviewed by a licensed land surveyor, and the engineer had to pay all costs of the reviews. So it can turn into a pretty expensive penalty. Engineer was contracted to provide work on a single-family home, again, including septic, mapping of the site, and county submittals. And the engineer, sometimes I understand the engineer will do his own geotechnical report and charge the client, but this time the engineer required a geotech report from the client. They had to provide it. The report noted groundwater levels were expected to fluctuate due to this area undergoing flood irrigation throughout the year, which I was unaware. I was not that familiar with flood irrigation. They actually put a foot or two of water over the entire area. And of course, changes in precipitation and seasonal variations could affect the groundwater level also. Soon after installation, the area was flood irrigated. 1 week after that, they found that water had entered the septic tank and the piping had been compromised due to vertical displacement of the septic tank due to groundwater levels rising. New design was prepared for an above-ground system, and then it was installed. The engineer did not anticipate that flood irrigation would impact the groundwater levels as they did. He admitted this gross negligence in design of the system. What were the violations? Again, gross negligence was basically the main violation. Disciplinary action, again, 2-year suspension, stayed with probation. Had to have all the septic systems designed between July of 2018 and 2022 December. 3 projects were randomly selected, as I said, for peer review, and this particular engineer had to incur all these costs. Administrative $5,000, legal fees of $2,100, obtain a design course, and refund the client almost $16,000. So again, another expensive sanction. Now, if you read through the codes and if you're licensed in multiple states, you will know, I think just about every state requires this or has this in their statutes. you can be sanctioned by your home state for disciplinary action from another state. Now, we typically don't pile on anything, but it would be dependent upon the offense or if whatever the disciplinary action occurred, a violation. But as it says on your renewal application, you have to self-report any disciplinary action from another state. In this particular one, the land surveyor was sanctioned by California. They found the following violations: failed to record surveys on several properties, failed to meet standards of care, failed to set monuments, and failed to file corner records, negligent and/or incompetency and improper establishment of multiple boundaries. And the sanctions incurred were 3-year suspension stayed, investigative cost of $12,600. He had to retake the California laws and California laws, boards and rules exam. And even though it's not required in PDHs by California, he had to complete an ethics course and then complete a 2-hour or 2 college level surveying courses that were pre-approved by the board. Now, we could pile additional sanctions on top of this, but what those would have been, or what, as I said earlier, the violations would fall under 410.6, disciplined by another state. But what we did do on this particular one, we followed the same suspension as California, stayed with probation, bi-monthly reports of any work, not outside the state, but within this state. And only other thing is provide us proof that he fulfilled the California obligations, completed the courses that were required in the stipulated agreement. Now, this is kind of a two-parter. Land surveyor was sanctioned in 2021 for several violations: late filing a survey, improper firm registration, improper contract, and failure to be a faithful agent to the client. The discipline was 2-year suspension with probation, $1,500 admin fine, $2,200 on legal fees, write a paper on contracts and recording surveys, and submit bi-monthly reports on any work performed within the state. Situation: surveyor failed to meet the requirements specified in the first stipulated agreement. He was informed to appear before the board in January of 2022. That was acknowledged, and he said that he would attend the meeting. He did not appear or give notification to the board that he would not be attending. Violations: 625, 410, Section 5, additional disciplinary actions being allowed. Again, 340, filing surveys late, firm registration, contracts. All of these were from the first complaint, but they were restated in terms of the second complaint also. Disciplinary action: stay on the suspension was lifted. We had to do that because his license was on probation so that it could be resuspended until July of 2023, or until he becomes fully compliant with all terms of the stipulated agreement. So if you don't fulfill the stipulated agreement that you agree to, you can be redisciplined again later on down the line. And that's what's happened in this particular situation. Okay, that takes us through the case studies. We are a little bit early but that's okay. We will, by the time we finish through these last few slides and get some questions going, we will still fulfill the requirements for 2 hours of ethics. So we will be compliant. But one thing we want to make people aware of is, I'm assuming most everybody now either uses or is aware of digital signatures on submittals and plans. There is a very good video that the board has put together, or the staff has put together, on how to create digital signatures and how to apply it to documents. How long is that, Derek? Do you remember? About an hour?
The video itself is,
Yeah.
I think it's about 40 minutes total. It's broken up into two parts. The first part is Bluebeam, or first part is Acrobat, and the second part is Bluebeam. So we cover both of the most common software.
And actually, the instructors are licensed surveyors and engineers, aren't they?
One's an electrical engineer, the other one's a civil engineer.
Right.
So yeah,
So
they're both
the
professionals.
training, yeah, just saying, the training is not conducted by actual staff members. These are people who use it every day.
Right.
Right. But very beneficial. Now, finally, Derek made mention to this a little bit earlier, but SB 78 is a state bill. It's out there. It's being discussed as we speak. Final resolution has not come to pass. But if you're interested in it or learning more, the link on the bottom, it can be found on our website, explains what the bill's about, what this board's take on it is, and it gives you ways to make your feelings heard. You can reply, send your comments, questions, or anything into the people working on this bill. That would about cover it, wouldn't it, Derek?
Yep.
We're not experts on it, but this is where you could find the information.
Yep.
Turn it back over to you, Derek.
Yes, good job, Steve. We finished a little bit early. So I mentioned earlier that we would have a little bit of time to do some Q&A, and this is the time where we'll maybe open it up, the chat up a little bit, and I will do my best to read and scroll quickly. There was a couple of questions that came in during Steve's presentation that I'll answer those. Ed McGuire, one of our other staff members,
Thanks, Ed.
just chimed in and said the digital signature video is actually 25 minutes total. So I was the one that directed it. I should know that, but Ed
I
is.
thought Ed was going to ask me a question I couldn't answer.
Yeah, no, he's more on the ball than I am. Again, engineers tend to be detail oriented. I am not an engineer, so that's my excuse. Okay, so how to approve we attended? That question just came in, and that was actually one of my closing remarks. So here's the deal, and Steve went over PDHs in great detail, but I'll cover one thing here as far as documenting your participation in this webinar. We don't require that you provide physical proof unless you are audited. And that point, Steve's going to ask you to provide some kind of proof. And the proof doesn't necessarily have to be our certificate. It can be your records that you keep in Excel spreadsheet, somewhere that you've documented that you participated. That's really all we require. However, I do create a certificate, and I'm happy to email it to anybody that wants one. My email's on screen right there. My email is also on our website if you go under the board link, and then under that you'll see staff. My email is also there. But I will send you a certificate if you want one as proof that you attended this webinar. I will one thing that I wanted to mention, the PDH is how you record the PDH activity. Your PDH activity is in Nevada is the honor system. We trust that you're honest and ethical, and that you're going to keep track of your PDHs and be honest about what you did, and that's good enough for us. You can use any system you want, although I highly encourage you to use NCEES, the CPC system that they have. where you can document and keep track of your PDH activity. There was a question earlier about where to find the form on our website. If you go under the first link, Engineers and Land Surveyors, you'll see a forms page. Underneath that forms will have a list of documents. And one of them is the PDH activity report. That is there. It exists as a PDF currently. I was thinking about it actually before the webinar today, that really it would be helpful if that form is in some kind of format, like an Excel spreadsheet or something like that, maybe an interactive PDF where you could fill in the fields. So I'll look at and maybe updating that as well. Let's see. The other,
Derek,
yeah.
going back to how do you prove this, what I've received from some people is they take a screenshot of the very first slide that has,
That's totally acceptable as well.
Right.
Yes, absolutely.
and they send that in, but what you can also do, take a screenshot of that.
Well, that's exactly right. Yep. Take a screenshot of that. If you can just print screen if you want. The PDF's not available at this point, but like I said, I'll create one and I'll email it to anybody that wants one.
Yeah, because what some people have done, they didn't have a chance to take the first slide. They go in and watch the video that Derek's going to post, and that's where they get their screenshot from. But
Yep.
Anyway, however you want to do it, like Derek was saying, just about anything is accepted.
Yep. And then the last thing that I wanted to mention is the video of this webinar will be available to watch. If I know some of you joined late, and if you wanted to catch the first part or the second part, whatever you missed, this video will be available on our continuing education page, which is what Steve has right there. Like I said, give me till tomorrow, maybe Thursday, and I'll have that available, so that page will be updated. So with that, we've got a couple questions that I jotted down. Somebody asked, what activities count and for what? I think their specific question was they participated in some code updates, ICC code updates, and what does that count for? There's a chart.
Yes.
There's a chart on our continuing education page that actually lists the types of activities and how much they count for. That particular activity counts, it's 1-to-1, so 1 hour
Right.
of activity gets 1 PDH credit. But
Now,
other activities that are there as well.
Now, if you're the chairman of the committee,
Yes, exactly. If you teach or instruct a class, and it's a fairly general chart, but I think you can use common sense to figure out,
Right.
What type of activity you did and what it counts for. Somebody else asked if they participated in more than 2 hours of ethics classes, could they count those PDH activities? And the answer is, yeah, you can count it. Nevada only requires 2 for PDH, for license renewal. But you can get more than that, especially if it's related to engineering or land surveying activities, whatever you do for a profession, whatever your discipline is.
They would just be considered the 2 required for ethics. All the others would just be considered general PDHs, and yes, they would be countable.
Yeah, you could count those. So that's that as far as those notes that I made. Let's see. Let me roll through the questions here and see if I can answer some of those. How to prove we attend? Just answer that one. Can you display the certificate? Could you turn to the first page? Somebody wants to return to the first page. Steve, you want to advance it? Just go back to the first page. Somebody,
Okay.
I think, maybe wants to grab a screenshot of that.
Screenshots.
Mm-hmm.
Let me do it the easy way.
Yeah. And my email. So again, my email, feel free to email me questions. Nick, Evan says, Control Home will get you to the first screen, Steve. So little technology shortcut.
It was control what? Control
Control
home?
plus home. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hate it when I learn something every day.
I don't, if anybody else has questions, feel free to jot them down in the chat. And I can scroll through this. We got plenty of time before this ends,
Right.
although we will let you out of class early. And, it's a nice sunny day outside, at least in Reno. You can go outside. A few years ago, there was a survey sent out about PDH requirements. What came of that? Brian, I'm not sure what survey that you're referring to. Does that ring a bell
I
to
think
you,
that was the
Steve?
one. I think this was before my time with the board, but I think they did, once they determined that they were going to implement ethics requirements, they did a survey. This would have been back in 2018 or 2019.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did hear something about that, but I don't know what became of it. I wasn't working with you at that time.
Okay. Yeah, I don't, Brian, I'm sorry if you let me know exactly what it was that the survey that you're talking about. Was it like reaching out to licensees about getting input the PDH requirements? Give me a little bit more information. I'll get you an answer on that. Is Steve planning to get registered in Nevada?
No.
Not currently. Steve
No.
is semi-retired, although he does help us with these webinars and ethics stuff. So Brian said, yes, they asked licensees what their input was. Boy, Brian, I'm sorry. That might have been before my time as well.
Yeah.
I came on 2021. So
Yeah.
I suppose the answer is, well, you've got 2 hours of ethics that are now required by statute or by regulation, I guess, and 1 hour of Nevada law. The reason for the Nevada law one, I know that the impetus for that was that we felt that it was helping licensees if stay out of hot water. Basically, if we felt like if they understood the laws and regulations that we have on the books, maybe that would help them avoid, issues down the road. The ethics one was kind of the same way. We felt that just because of the history of the disciplinary actions that we received, the complaints and so forth, that there was really a strong ethical component to all of the complaints that was consistent. So felt like adding ethics as a requirement would maybe head some of that off. So that was probably the result, Brian, of what that survey was, and it made its way into actual legislation. So, and by the way, speaking of legislation, all of the statutes and regulations are available on our website, and I pointed this out yesterday in Ed's presentation. They are current. They are 100% current. They link to the legislatures. They are not actually reproduced on our site. They're actually the statutes and regulations as they exist in the state law. So that's always the best place to look. If you're looking for any updates on any regulations, that is always the best place to look. Do you have any guidance for government employee licensees reporting others to negligence? Steve, you want to answer that one?
Read it again to me, please, Derek.
Do you have any guidance for government employee licensees reporting others for negligence? So a government state, federal employee reporting on another employee for negligence.
It would just be handled the same way as if it was a non-government employee. You would file a complaint on our form and spell it, spell out why and what was going on, and it would be handled the exact same way that we talked about earlier. So yes, you would just it doesn't matter whether they would be another federal employee or not.
Yeah.
You're
And
just
it's,
you're reporting a violation of an engineer
yep.
or
And
sir.
they're anonymous. So I think probably reading into that question a little bit, I'm sure there's a concern about anonymity and, you know, like Steve pointed out, all investigations are confidential. Okay, so they've got a couple questions here. Ooh, there's a long one. David, hang on one second. I'll get to read that in just a second. Can you extend that to public and utility engineers? I believe that was referring to the previous question oh, given that they are exempt from NRS 625. I don't believe, I don't know, Steve, I may be speaking out of turn here, but I don't believe that anyone is exempt from 625, regardless of whether you're a public employee or not.
I would agree with that, Derek. You're licensed by the state, and it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter who you're working for.
Yeah,
It's a violation of your state license.
yeah. So, okay, so here's the next question. The Legislative Committee of the Nevada Board of Professional Engineers and Land Surveyors is currently conducting, oh, he's reading the question, is conducting a comprehensive 10-year review of regulations. As part of that review, the committee is seeking input from all licensees. Yeah, that was definitely before my time. Regulations requiring continuing education were added in 1997 in the interest of public protection, continuing education, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'll let the rest of you read that if you're interested. But yeah, thank you for sending that, David. That's good information. Anyone else? Like I said, we've got plenty of time here. There was a request to move the presentation to the certificate screen. Ed, if you want to do that. So I think I mentioned the videos. You will, if you have colleagues that that were not able to attend this live, I get lots of people that call and ask if watching the video counts the same, and absolutely it counts the same. So whether you watch the videos that we posted from November, again, we do these every 6 months prior to renewal periods or renewal expirations. So you can watch any of those. And it's a good idea to watch the most recent one, obviously, because any changes, especially regulations that change will be you'll get those in the most recent video, but you get the same credit for those. So pass that along to anybody that wasn't able to attend that you know. And again, I'll post it on the website in the next day or so. So is yesterday's talk considered as 1 hour or 0 hours? Well, Ed would be offended if you claimed 0 hours. No, it's 1 hour. You get 1 hour, and it is required for license renewal, 1 hour of Nevada law. So you get that. And again, that video will be posted today or tomorrow on our website. You get the credit for that. Where can we find the video regarding digital signatures? If you go to our website, underneath Engineers and Land Surveyors, you're going to see sealing, signing, and submittals, and then right below that, electronic submittals and digital signature guide. It's there. There's an actual guide, and then the link to the video is also there as well.
Isn't it on the? I just pulled the other slide back up, Derek. Isn't it on this one?
Yeah, digital signature. Yeah, it's right there.
Yeah, it's drop down menu under engineers and land surveyors.
So the question, NRS 625.095 mentions the applicability to certain persons or entities. public utility engineers are listed. Is that not correct? You know, that's outside my wheelhouse. I apologize. I can research that and get you a definitive answer. I don't claim to be the expert on that. I'm the communications guy here. So if you get too far down in the weeds, it's easy to get over my head.
Well, yeah, we'll get you an answer for that one.
Yeah, I'll get you an answer on that. Send me an email if you would. I don't see your name. I just see the user ID for you, but just send me an email on that if you would, and I'll respond to it. I am assuming when the board presents at ASCE or other professional organization luncheons events such as tomorrow evening, that it counts as a single PDH for the regulatory PDH requirement. If you're talking about the Nevada law, no. The Nevada law one is only satisfied, you can do it a couple ways. You can get it literally by going to the statutes and regulations section of our website and reading them, and through self-study, you can count that, or by watching the video of the Nevada law webinar we did yesterday, or by attending the webinar in live. So I think that's what you meant with your question, but yeah, that's really the only way to get the Nevada law. It's specific to our laws and regulations in Nevada. Okay, I think answered that one. Anybody else? We got a little bit of time left. If anybody's got a burning question. If not, I think we can probably close it up, Steve, and let everybody.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Get on with their
Because,
day.
you know, a PDH hour is not a full hour of instruction. It's 50 minutes.
Well, there you go. And I was going to say, just because we're ending a little bit early doesn't mean that you only get, an hour and 45 minutes
No,
of this. You get the full 2-hour credit. So
yeah. Since I'm the one who approves it, if you're audited, I'm going to call it good.
yeah. Well, I got one more question here. Are the ethical standards upheld by engineers registered through Engineer Council UK, example CENG, International PE UK, aligned with those recognized by NCEES in the United States, particularly in the context of the Mutual Recognition Agreement? Wow, that's a really good question.
Ooh.
In other words, do international ethics requirements equate to our US requirements, specific, and even more specifically, Nevada's requirements? We have agreements with UK and United Kingdom and Canada. Recently we've had several people getting licensed in Nevada from those states. So you know what? I'm going to ask you to send me an email on that one. Darius, I can't see the name, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it, but send me an email if you would, and I'll get you an answer to that. Was the video uploaded yesterday? No, but it will be today or tomorrow. So give me a couple minutes on that, and I'll get it to you. To make sure, sorry, I'm just questions. How do you confirm full license details to make sure they are up to date? Our current license software doesn't allow you to go in and update anything on your record. The best way to do it is to, you can look on your, let's see, you can do a license lookup on our website to see what information is there. And that's right on the front page. Just type in your license number and you'll see what information is listed there. And then to update it, just give me a call. Myself or a couple other people will answer the phone, and all of us can make those changes to your record live during the call. So that's the best way to do it. So, all right, I'm gonna shut it down. Steve, thank you. Thank you everyone for attending. We'll do this. We'll do this again sometime in the November timeframe prior to the December renewal. So. Other than that, we'll see you in a couple of years, probably the next time you renew your license. Anyway, thanks again, everyone, for attending. Email me if you have questions.
Okay.